and I didn't caucus about this introduction because I was going to start about Kerry and Bob as well. And why I was going to start there is because I actually think it's relevant and it's a good story to tell. That a while back somebody asked me, do your politicians still have the courage of Bob and Kerry? If a latter-day George Bush turned up in the House of Representatives, would they interject? And I've got to say, it caught me on the hop. And the best I came up with was, I hope so. And I inject that into the debate now because Parliament's a strange place, and that's for another discussion. But it is actually relevant because what I'm trying to say is that there is a conservatising aspect to Parliament where I do feel confident about the Greens because I think it's fortunate that our first MPs, like in New South Wales, Ian Cohen, Bob Brown, our very first Green Senator federally, Joe Valentine, were activists before they became politicians. They understood how you bring about social change. Jim's very important point about the strength of the social movements is something that I know that they believed in and helped inform the Greens when we were formed. But now we come to the question before us today about one-term Tony. Hopefully it is, but what we would be left with is hopefully more Greens MPs, but we're going to be left with Labor as well. And dealing with Labor is one of the biggest challenges of our movement, as it has been for the left forever. And I seriously mean forever. And just a little bit of history here. When Labor's formed, they very quickly elected to Parliament. Within a very short time, the Labor MPs were not following policy, not following the policy of their party, and I think they actually expelled about 35 of them. Coming forward to today, Labor, when they are in opposition, are such a different beast. Adam has outlined a plan that we know that can work. But there are obviously other aspects to dealing with it, and probably much of what I'm saying is framed because of how hard Labor right are in this state. We're seeing it play out in ICAC with some of those very ruthless characters, but then there's that whole other side of Labor right, which is they might not be corrupt with the paper bag corruption, but they hit and they kick hard, as we see in Parliament all the time. To give you some examples of how we deal with this, I just run through, mention three, and I think this highlights the challenges that we have in running our campaigns when they're in opposition, and then what we do with them in government. Is public transport. I had the transport portfolio before when Labor were in government. When I'd speak on the issue, do all the public transport messages, I'd have particularly the Transport Workers Union, senators linked with the Transport Workers Union, who I now work really well with, absolutely yelling at me about how I hate trucks and, all I can talk about is public transport. They're the ones now, in the Senate estimates, forming the committees, public transport's what they talk about all the time. Higher education. What did Labor do? April 2013, cut $2.3 billion from the higher education budget. I'd already cut about $400 million, so it's up to nearly $3 billion. What do they do in opposition? They reversed their policy within weeks of going into opposition, and now they've got a consistent policy with us up there on this all-important issue around higher education. And then you can see it in a whole range of issues. These are complexities in the community, and for the Greens. I find our Greens members are very angry because they see this inconsistency, whereas so many of the community groups I work with, they're really pleased that they're seeing Labor talk about good policies on higher education, good policies on public transport. They want us to be working with them, and we are. But to work out how we articulate that differences, those betrayals, is really a challenge. Adam summed it up about how we need to present ourselves as the real opposition. But so much of the community want us to be working together. How we do it and learn from the lessons of history. Because what I see of the left, that we fluctuated with our dealings with Labor from being either too sectarian or too cooperative with Labor. Labor's a big part of the post-Tony period that we'll come to sooner or later, and it's lessons we've got to learn. I haven't got them. Thanks.